Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, I'm going to talk about how lifting saved my life, more specifically the mental health benefits of lifting. I want to share my personal story. Before I get into that topic, if you guys have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. All right, so saw the Brains and Gains podcast channel and GVS's response, so I thought it would be a good time to kind of cover this ground. It's been a while since I shared my personal story on this channel, and for those of you guys that really don't care, just click away now because it's probably going to be at least a 10-minute video. It's been a while since I shared my personal story, and I don't come on here and pretend like I'm some unique little, snowflake, right? That I'm the only one that grew up with struggles. This is just my story, and I want to share it. I shared it about 5 years ago on this channel, and my perspective has evolved a little bit in life over the years. Now that I coach, I'm very interested in getting concrete results for my clients, but I'm also very much interested in their mental health, their mental well-being, because without your mental health, really all this other stuff we do, really isn't as important. So I'm kind of unscripted in this video. I'm just going to speak and, talk about my story a little bit. And really, my life story is all about lifting. It sounds dramatic, and I'll get into things, but without lifting, my life would have been a train wreck. It literally would have been a train wreck without lifting and, without fitness in general. So travel back in time. I was born in 1967. Yes, I'm old AF, right? Travel back in time. My father was in Vietnam 2 tours, I believe starting in 1966. And got out in 1967 or 68. So my father was in Vietnam for 2 tours. He got back, and he was a very violent alcoholic. My father is no longer with us. I'm happy to say, that I developed a good relationship with him. But for a very long time, my life story was about how I was a victim, more mentally than anything, from my father's abuse. He came back, and he was a very violent alcoholic. My childhood, I remember stories of him taking me to the bars all the time. This is in Wisconsin. I would be playing the pinball or playing pool while he'd be getting drunk, middle of the day. He would take me to his girlfriends' houses. My dad was obviously sleeping around, cheating, whatever. My dad was really out of control. I remember fighting a lot. My dad was 6'2", 6'3", just a big man, a big, strong man, naturally. And I remember stories being outside of the bar with him at night, getting in the car. And I remember one specific story where somebody jumped off the roof and went after him. There was always something violent going on with my dad. Every night was something chaotic. And I can look back at it now and see him, like he was just a young guy, right? He was in his 30s. He was younger than 30. He was still trying to figure out life. And when I was a kid, you don't understand that, right? But now that I'm older, I kind of gained that perspective and understood he was just a kid and he went through his own struggles. And I respect that. And it's much easier not to judge him and be a victim with that perspective. But there was one story that really impacted my life. I was about 8 years old and my dad was no longer in the house. My parents were in the process of getting a divorce. And my dad actually lived only about a block away with his girlfriend, who he ended up marrying and being with, I believe, for over 40 years. And my dad was sober for the last 35 whatever years of his life. So he was about a block away, and it was a Saturday night, I believe, and we got a phone call. It was my dad. He was drunk out of his mind, and he said, "I'm going to come kill everyone." So It was me, my sisters, my mom, and my aunt were there, and you could hear shotgun blasts firing off into the air as he got closer to the house. He entered the house, and everybody ran and hid upstairs. I remember hiding in the closet. I was 8 years old, and he pulled me downstairs. Again, my dad is a big man. He sat on the couch, gave me the shotgun, and just was screaming, kill me, kill me, kill me. I'm an 8-year-old holding a shotgun, forced to point it at my dad. He's yelling, kill me. And, finally the cops showed up and he jumped into the fray and there was a big fight and all this kind of stuff. But the point of this story is this story is kind of the defining story of my life. It is something more than anything that has lingered with me. Some things just linger, right? It had more negative impact on my mental health than I can even begin to appreciate the depths of the impact. As an adult, stress, I don't handle stress well, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I don't like stress. I like routine. I found the value of routine. Stress, it makes me stressful. I like calm. I like silence. I like peace. I like stability. I don't think I really realized the depths of that need in my life till recent years. You kind of mature and you realize these are my habits, and I think it's because of kind of what I went through as a child. So my dad left, and in the late 70s, early 80s, a funny thing about child support, they didn't really work hard to, if somebody was late, they didn't really work to collect it. So I recall my dad never really paying child support, and we were extremely poor. My dad and my mom had bought a house before before their divorce, and all I remember from my childhood was just in what disrepair the house was. Every time it would rain, the leaks in the roof, it would rain all over the house, literally. Like, I can't even begin to describe. The front and the back of the house it was raining inside of the house. We'd have to run around the house with buckets. The house was in such disrepair. We never had any money. My mom worked in a laundromat at a healthcare facility, for $6, $7, $8 an hour. She was always up at 3 a.m. and back home at 3 p.m. And, we lived off like bologna and cheese sandwiches and Campbell's soup and things like that our whole childhood. That was what we ate. We never had a lot of money. At the second half of the month, when we could no longer afford luxuries like cheese, we would eat bologna sandwiches, and then you'd kind of slip into putting whatever you could between a piece of bread, an egg sandwich, or a ketchup sandwich. It sounds silly, but that was our childhood. We never had a lot of food. We never had a lot of luxury. And this eventually kind of caught up to me as an adult. We didn't have cookies around. We didn't have soda around. We didn't have ice cream around. When we did have it, when it was there, we would eat it all like little piggies, because we weren't used to having it. When we would do fast food or pizza once every 6 months, we would absolutely destroy it. And I'm going to get into binge eating here in a little bit. And I know this is a long story, but I wanted to share more of my personal story, and I appreciate you guys listening. I think it came to a point where this impacted me later in life. So here I was, just entering my teenage years, in this world. We didn't have a lot of clothes. We didn't have a lot of food. We had the shame of just a house that was in disrepair, right? And, I entered my teenage years, went off to school. I remember being teased because I didn't have much clothing. Like, I only had a couple of t-shirts, and people would make fun of me because I only had a couple of t-shirts. And I really started to pick up depression during those years. I really started to pick up suicidal thoughts. And that's no exaggeration. They were always there. I mean, I recall way back when, during those years, wishing I knew how to do it, just to get it over with, in some safe, efficient manner. That's what I remember my teen years. Also, what I remember from my teen years is that exercise was kind of my escape. It was I would go run. I would go play baseball. I would go shoot hoops. I would just relentlessly be repetitive with physical activity. For some reason, I made a connection with sports, and that connection with sports led me to a connection with athletes, and even things like the WWF at the time. The physiques of the wrestlers. I started to pick up, kind of an appreciation for strength and for muscle, that sort of thing. It was appealing. I started to pick up an interest in superheroes, that kind of power. Something about it was appealing to me. I was just this weak, depressed kid with this trash of a life. And one of the biggest things I remember, and looking back, like, I was a latchkey kid. My mom would go off to work. Nobody taught me how to do anything. And this isn't a pity story, and, I'm not asking for anybody to play violins, but no one taught me how to balance a checkbook or study for class or change oil or anything. I was just kind of a creature that existed, taking in food and trying to figure out life. I was trying to figure out life on my own. And this extra stress, this extra burden, really added to the depression. I was a pretty smart kid. I liked math. I liked science, and I was my scores were enough to get me into pretty much really good colleges. Just natural abilities. I wasn't exactly working hard in high school, but I still did enough to get the attention of colleges, and I went off to a college in New Mexico. New Mexico Tech, to study astrophysics. It was the first time in my life where I had an opportunity to be free, to do what I wanted to do, not to carry the burden of my mom's, our house, our rickety old house. I had a cafeteria, right, that I could go in during lunch and dinner and have whatever I wanted. It was like the first time in my life I could play. Literally, I could relax. I could just do what I wanted to do without stress. And I really started to get into lifting at that time. We had a really small gym, and there was an English professor that was a bodybuilder, Dr. Mike, and he started, tossing me little nuggets of information, about my squat. One of the first things I recall him teaching me about the squat is when you're going up, to lock out the squat, push your hips forward to lock that out. It was such a brilliant piece of advice. And these are just kind of the little gems he tossed my way as an 18-year-old kid. Well, not much to do at that time. I became enamored with lifting. I found a couple of bodybuilding magazines at the local small grocery store, Flex and Muscle and Fitness. I started to read everything in these magazines over and over again, and I found power. I found control, right? I could morph myself and change myself, and I didn't really realize for the first 18 to 24 months what it was doing to me. I was just kind of trapped in this little bubble in Socorro, New Mexico, lifting and eating and sleeping and lifting and eating and sleeping, and I came home. I ended up getting kicked out of college because I didn't like going to classes. I liked lifting so much. I literally got kicked out of college because of lifting. No, they didn't say you're lifting, you're kicked out of college. I got kicked out of college because lifting became my life. I had to get my sleep. I had to get my meals. I became a little bit obsessive. That's an understatement, to the point where I was skipping classes, and I wasn't worrying about classes. I was worrying about lifting. And eventually my grades suffered, and I got kicked out of school. And I came back to Wisconsin after 2 years of kind of being in this bubble, this little bubble. Let me paint a picture here. Socorro, New Mexico is a small town. And the college I went to had like 800 students at the time. Maybe 80 of them were women. And a lot of the women there were petroleum engineering majors from the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia. And they wouldn't talk to us. So there was like 20 women on campus. So it was just a bunch of guys hanging out. I came back from college after 2 years of lifting, and all of a sudden my life had completely changed. People were giving me attention. like asking me about lifting. I could tell people wanted to look like me. For the first time in my life, I could tell women were interested in me. It was a complete change. It was like walking into a room and having the light switch turned on, and all of a sudden your life is completely different. And I think it was really at that point in time where I began to understand the power of lifting. And it really began to help me improve my mental health. That routine, knowing that I could invest time and energy into a positive habit and get positive return from that. These were lessons that I was learning as a kid. And they helped me mentally. They really saved me mentally because I was so depressed as a teen. And even in my 20s, I carried this to a little bit. I mean, you fight depression. It's not something that just typically just goes away. I was just a depressed, confused kid. And really at this time, I began to build confidence for the first time in my life. I was empowered by the results from lifting. Women were talking to me. All of a sudden, I was normal. I could talk to any woman. I felt confidence, right? I was dating girls. Other guys wanted to be like me. They wanted to lift with me. They wanted to look like me. It was such an amazing, amazing beginning of my transformation story. So I continued to lift. I ended up entering the military. And kind of the second act of my life, I would say, was my marriage. I ended up getting involved with somebody that was not a bad person, but they were super stable. So I mentioned I have issues with stress right now, that I don't handle stress well. I don't like stress, right? It's not like I go crazy or anything, but I don't like stress. So, not really realizing it, I ended up marrying somebody that was so stable and not really good for me. They were stable. They were low stress. They were very stable with their job. This person's had the same job for decades, right? Lived in the same house for decades. This level of stability, when I was younger, was appealing. The downside was that this person wasn't really good for me. I'm somebody that's always been out and been active, right? Somebody that loves adventure, loves going and doing things, loves being that, let's just go do this today. Let's just go attack this goal today. Just living kind of with that mindset. And over the 17 years of our marriage, you kind of find out this person's not a bad person, but this person's not right for you, right? So depression began to creep back in. I was with somebody that wasn't active. We had kids. You kind of get into that dad grind. And I lost lifting a little bit for a number of years, and depression started to sneak back in. And, what I did, look, in my early 40s, I thought this is it. I'm a dad now, right? I got a house. There ain't no going back. I'm old, right? I'm old. It's done. This is my life for the rest of my life. That's the way I viewed it. And because my dad was so unstable as a kid, I wanted to give my own kids the most stability possible. I wanted to give them everything I didn't have as a kid, right? Stability and love and a dad that would always play with them and that sort of thing. And that's what I gave my kids. I took that seriously, and I knew I told myself I never want to get divorced, right? I never want to get divorced because I want to give my kids what I didn't have. And what had happened is because of that. And I'm not saying I regret it. I did everything I could for my children, but I stopped taking care of myself. I got depressed. You kind of developed this mindset like there's no way out. This is my life. I became depressed. I got in the grind. I eventually ended up getting a home gym, but during those home gym years, when I first started this channel way back when, it's where I took out my rage and my depression. It's where I just started to pour my energy into strength training. And I felt completely trapped and and bottled up in life. Like, this is it. This is over. This is my life. And I grew a big beard. I started to develop binge eating issues. I would fight depression and loneliness and frustration by eating just incredible amounts of food at night. This developed over time as a really bad habit. And because I now had money to buy Doritos and ice cream and all the things I didn't have as a kid, I didn't have really good control. So when all this stress started to mount on my shoulders during my early 40s, what I did was I would go lift and then I would go eat. I would lift and eat and lift and eat. And instead of drinking to be like my father, I turned to eating, not realizing it, not on purpose. But I ate myself to 346 pounds. I became extremely strong, but I picked up type 2 diabetes so bad it nearly killed me, literally. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. It nearly killed me. I woke up one day and I had cramps, Charlie horses, in every muscle of my body from head to toe. I couldn't move a little bit like this without having cramps in every muscle of my body. One of my good friends said, you have fatty liver disease. You have non-alcohol related fatty liver disease. Basically, my liver was not processing minerals properly, and I was cramping. And he said to me, dude, the heart's a muscle. Your heart's going to cramp next. In the real world, we call that a heart attack. It was kind of at that moment where I had my second rebirth in life, where I'd been married for 17 years, and I realized I need to take care of me. So I started exploring things online like, I need to take care of me. What does that mean? Is it okay to consider divorce, right? Is it okay to take care of myself? How's it going to impact my children? So it was funny because I had started the Muscle and Brawn website at the time. I had started my home gym at the time. And I really had got back into lifting, and I was pouring so much into lifting back then, just pouring so much into lifting that all this energy that I poured into lifting, it's giving me a return, and I don't even know what's coming. It's so spectacular. The way it's about to equip me and completely change my life. So, long story short, I ended up getting a divorce, getting hired by Muscle and Strength to write, because now I'm doing my passion, right? The thing that got me kicked out of college, lifting. Now I'm writing about it. Now I have a website, a popular website about it. Now I'm pretty darn strong, and this is feeling pretty good, right? All of a sudden, I wake up. During that time when I was 346 pounds and nearly dead, I immediately got on the treadmill. The second I gave myself permission to get a divorce and take care of myself, I immediately began taking care of myself again. Old habits returned. I was eating great. I was taking care of myself. I'd moved to South Carolina to be with Muscle and Strength. I lost 100 pounds. I woke up a completely different person. And somewhere along the line, when I got to Tiger Fitness, when I took a job with Tiger Fitness, it was kind of the same thing that happened to me in college, where I showed up and I was a completely different person, right? And that mental strength and that equipping that lifting does, it brought back that confidence, right? It brought back that I felt empowered again. All of a sudden, in my mid-40s, I was living a dream life, just absolutely living a dream life. And I could feel all the depression going away. I could feel just the control and the power from lifting, the way it made me feel strong and confident, the way it gave me a body that gave me confidence, where I could interact with women and not feel shy and have everybody want to have a physique like mine. It's just completely empowering. It ended up giving me a career. I developed into one of the top editors in the lifting industry. I got to work with everybody you can imagine. It ended up giving me this amazing dream life where I have everything I could have ever asked for. And the kid that got kicked out of college because he didn't go to class because of lifting, now had this amazing career because of lifting. And now I get to work with folks, day in and day out. And my main goal, I want to help them get bigger and stronger and transform their body. But I also want to help them on the mental side of things, because that's so important to me. Having people see the power that I experience from lifting. So mental health. I cannot speak enough about the impact that lifting has had on my mental health. In my depression years, in my confusion years, just having something that you can control in life. There's very few things you can control in life, but you can control your effort, right? Even if your attitude is shit, you can control your effort. And one thing I learned is just that consistent effort not only built amazing things into my life, physical strength, physical looks, appearance, health, but it also creates it opens doors to mental health and confidence and physical freedom, right? When you have the doors open and people want to talk to you, right? And women want to, you feel more confidence with women. And you feel in control, right? You feel on top of the world. It adds so much, it can add so much value to your life. So I do not know where I would be without lifting. It basically took me down to the pit, got me kicked out of college. I grounded out in 20 years and in blue-collar jobs, thinking my life was over and that I messed up my college, and it ended up bringing me to the peak in life, and it's my career right now. It's what I'm going to do until I die, help you guys. It is everything to me. I love lifting. I love programming. I love form. I love helping people. And I do my best never to turn anybody down. And I answer every question I can on Instagram. I wish I could answer every question on YouTube. The questions are far too vast. But that's my story, man. I was a depressed kid with a violent alcoholic father. And there are other pieces of the puzzle I could add in, other stories along the way. But I'm not going to waste your time. It's been a long enough video. But all I want to do is encourage you guys just to keep moving, just to keep lifting. It's not about, for me, how big you can get or about how strong you can get. It's about control. It's about gaining control in a life that is chaotic. Lifting gives you control. It's an amazing opportunity. Nutrition gives you control. You have this power right there at your fingertips to choose what you eat, to choose what you do with your day. And it can add so much to your life. I just want to encourage you guys to embrace that. Embrace that. It's gonna provide benefits if you embrace it that you can't even imagine. So guys, hope this video has been of some help. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. If you made it this far in this video and have yet to subscribe to my channel, please do. I'd appreciate the support. So guys, as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.